beautiful faces on this fine, very sunny, extremely warm Saturday evening. I'm excited to welcome us to another edition of our Women and the Society seminar. This is the 6th edition we've had this year. And for those who are joining us online virtually for the first time, our Women and the Society seminars hold every month. So it's on the last Saturday of every month at 5 p.m., the exact same venue. So please pencil us into your calendar and join us whenever you can. This is an important conversation that we know has been beneficial to our community. So we expect that every single session we have every month offers the attendee something. And we've had several testimonials of how people's lives are being changed, just by listening to the seminars that are curated here. I want to say that we take time to really handpick everyone who comes through several means. So one way is to ask those who are attending, what exactly are the things you want to hear about? So that way we can look at our society and find women who are the epitome of what is sought after. And then we are very privileged that we always have them come and tell us about, how they thrived in these areas. Okay, so I'll take a couple of steps back. My name is CHIKA. I'm the privileged convener of WTAL Canada. WTAL means Woman Thou Art Loosed. And the origin of Woman Thou Art Loosed takes its meaning or draws its meaning from the fact that in the present day society, we know that women are often stifled or always unheard or always considered second rate or not as important. And because of that, we find that many women are many times handicapped and are also barriers to themselves because of this mindset that has been perpetuated. So what we want to do here is allow us to think, to feel free to think, to chase those things that bring us fulfillment, to answer the questions on how we can thrive in a society that continues to change, maybe not fast enough, because we still see in many circles that men dominate in income, in employment, in leadership positions, in the things that many women are also qualified for. They often tend to look at men first. So what we're doing here is going into our society and finding women who have broken those barriers and asking them to tell us, how have they done this thing? What are the tricks of the trade? What have you found to be tried and tested so that the rest of us don't have to go through what they've gone through, but find an easier route to achieve those things? So this is why WTAL was birthed, because we want to make it easier for women who are coming after us. We want to empower them, provide them opportunities that many of us didn't have but had to fight for. So this is really about women empowerment. And that doesn't mean that men are unwelcome. We've had men who have attended and who have also been, who have shared very worthwhile, information about their experience here and how it has really remolded the way they've thought. One thing that we hear the men say is that they can now know how to champion women advancement because they know what it is that women are going through and they have a clearer picture of what the challenges are now. So they can speak better about it. So while we're trying to empower women, we also want to enlighten the men as to what it is that women are really going through in a society where many of them can be oblivious, because things are easier for them. This month marks exactly 3 years of WTAL. Can someone put your hands together for that information? Yeah. So 3 years of empowering women. 3 fantastic years. And Women Thou Art Loosed, I want to say, is extremely comprehensive because in many occasions what we find that happens in our society is where organizations hone in on just one facet of our lives. But what we do here is multidimensional, and multifaceted, where we want to prepare women to thrive in society, in career, in business, in employability. We also want to take care of their mental wellness, help them build character. Many of us are struggling for positions in society, but haven't really built the character for those roles. So that's one of the things that we're trying to build in Women That Lose, is to really mold the well-rounded woman. And the end goal of this organization is that women are living lives that are more fulfilled, where they're able to really lay hold on everything that they desire and nothing is suffering. Because one thing you hear women say often is that, I've had to forego this for that. I've had to forego this for that. And it seems like we're really the only ones who are often, confronted with sacrifices, having to leave one thing for the other. I've heard women say to me, "Oh, hey, Dr. Chika, how do you do this? Because, you're a mom, you have 3 children, you have all these different things you're working on, but isn't something suffering? I've had to, put children on hold until I've had to kind of build my career. Or I've said to myself, I can't get married until I've done this." So there's all these different sacrifices, that women are confronted with. And we want them to know that you can really achieve everything. So this is a place where we're helping women to find how they can balance all their desires and really be beneficial to the society and feel complete, feel fulfilled with themselves. Today is a special edition of our seminars. It's an extremely special one. And this is because one of the things that really kickstarted WTAL is questions I kept on getting about purpose and passion. I've had students who have asked me, "Hey, Dr. Chika, I'm kind of like all over the place. I don't know what to do with my life. I'm good at something, but I don't know if that's what I'm supposed to do with my profession. Or I love to do this, but does it mean I should be doing that? And how do I balance the fact that the thing I love to do doesn't pay me, but I need to earn money as well?" So all these questions kept coming, and just the frequency of these questions really kind of birthed this seminar, and also WTAL as a whole. So we're going to be looking today at purpose and passion. And we have 2 phenomenal women here, Dr. Jacqueline Musabende and Ashley TEDHAM, who are going to tell us, really how to balance both. Because you're going to hear from them that these are women who have found purpose and who are still pursuing passion-driven projects. So they found a way to really marry these 2 things that are often very conflicting. And so this is a fantastic seminar for everyone. So I encourage you to pay rapt attention, get out your notes, write your questions down. We're going to have them answer all those questions before we wrap up today. We're going to entertain questions from our online family as well. And I also have my own questions, because I'm also curious, to have my own questions answered. Finally, before I get off, I do want to ask you to, so for these past 3 years, we haven't been funded by any external organization. It's been self-funded by myself, by members of the organizing committee who are extremely passionate about what we do here and are seeing that is really kind of benefiting the society. So one thing we ask you before you leave here is to think if the time here was worthwhile, if you find yourself acquiring new knowledge or living here with a sense of, fulfillment, that I really love being here. I love listening to Ashley. I love listening to Jacqueline. It was a fantastic conversation, a fantastic couple of hours here. I felt very welcome. This really suited me. We ask you to please donate to this cause. So there's no pressure. We want you to only give if you found that you've taken away from here as well. So if it doesn't benefit you, then that's impossible, because it will. It has always been extremely beneficial. So if you find yourself excited and just like, you're having all these light bulbs going off in your head. You know, you're smiling, you're excited about your presence here. Then please donate to what we're doing here. We really want this to keep on going, and we'd love you to contribute and donate in the way that you can. Before we wrap up today, we're going to have one of our staff kind of go around with some bookmarks with all the information you need. Again, just telling you about what WTAL does, what the cause is about, and how you can donate. Thank you for listening. On that note, can we play the introductory video for Ashley before she comes up?
Jacqueline Musabenda is an associate professor of international business at Mount Royal University, Alberta, where she teaches global business, international marketing, business in emerging markets, project management and management information system. A native Calgarian with a passion for international and community development, Ashley obtained her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Calgary in 2007, and a master's degree in 2012 in international affairs at the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. Over the last 15 years, Ashley has worked with various international organizations.
And to the right of myself was this young lady, Ashley. And, you know, one thing led to the other. She was just a very
in Sierra Leone, Canada and Switzerland, including the Canadian International Development Agency, the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations and World Trade Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, and the World Health Organization. In 2016, Ashley returned to Calgary and became the Executive Director of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award, the award. In 2020, Ashley was included in Avenue magazine's Top 40 Under 40, highlighting the award's work empowering criminally involved youth through a project she developed called the Youth Resiliency Project. In April 2021, Ashley took on a new role with Benevity. She is the Director of Operations. Ashley is a passionate volunteer and currently sits on the board of Cause Canada and Making Changes Association.
Among the top 40 most recognized people in our city for one thing or another is really an accolade. And so I said to her, you need to come and speak at WTAL. We need to listen to a woman like yourself. And besides that, she has also risen to, you know, very high levels in her career. So there's so much we can learn from her. So can we play the video now? Is it ready?
And community development, Ashley obtained her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of at the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. A native Calgarian with a passion for international and community development, Ashley obtained her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Calgary in 2007, and a master's degree in 2012 in international affairs at the Graduate Institute. A native Calgarian with a passion for international and community development, Ashley obtained her bachelor's degree in political science at the University of Calgary in 2007, and a master's degree in 2012 in international affairs at the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. Over the last 15 years, Ashley has worked with various international organizations in Sierra Leone, Canada and Switzerland, including the Canadian International Development Agency, the permanent mission of the Republic of Korea to the United Nations and World Trade Organization, the World Meteorological Organization, and the World Health Organization. In 2016, Ashley returned to Calgary and became the Executive Director of the Duke of Edinburgh's International Award, the award. In 2020, Ashley was included in Avenue magazine's Top 40 Under 40, highlighting the award's work empowering criminally involved youth through a project she developed called the Youth Resiliency Project. In April 2021, Ashley took on a new role with Benevity. She is the Director of Operations. Ashley is a passionate volunteer and currently sits on the board of Cause Canada and Making Changes Association.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. All right, is this on? Everybody hear me okay? Amazing. Well, first of all, I haven't been called young in a while, so that was very nice. And I sound way smarter with a British accent reading my, my profile, so thank you for that. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and I feel very, very motivated and passionate to speak whenever I can to women about women's journeys, professionally and personally, and how they interact with one another, because it's not easy, and we learn from each other. So it's an honor to be here. So when I was reflecting on my career journey in preparation for tonight, I kept coming back to all of these different chapters of my life and all the experiences, both big and small, that provided me with these little bits of information or these lessons that increased my self-awareness, that I needed to move, that gave me self-awareness to move through each preceding chapter. So today is a bit of a storytelling conversation and less of a lecture of sorts. So my hope is that in sharing a bit of my journey, it will help you with your own in some positive way. So just to give you a little bit of background of who I am, I'm, like the British accent said, I am a native Calgarian. I was born and raised here. And although I've lived abroad in many different countries, most of all of my childhood was here, and I've been back for about 7 years. So Calgary is very, very close to my heart. And it's interesting, which we'll probably get to later, but I spent a good part of my youth trying to get away from Calgary, and I find it very ironic that I am here, because I think if people had waged bets, they would have said that I would have been probably anywhere else but. So I don't know, I don't know, CHIKA, if you had the slides that they were going to show, but if you do have them, great, and if not, no worries. So I'll just tell you when to go, so you can go to the next slide there. Next. Let's see. No. We'll give it a sec. There you go. Stop there. So this is a picture of when I was a kid, and I want to be clear that this is usually how I look. The other picture is more of like, after I've discovered how to do my hair and makeup and got a professional picture done. But I show this because, we all are that 6-7-year-old self. The only thing that changes is increased experiences, and we start to look a little bit different. But I was really thinking back about how I've changed, and in lots of ways I have, but in lots of ways I'm still that kind of funny kid with frizzy hair and big glasses. But when I'll just go to the next slide. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about my story through some of these chapters that I keep going back to. And the first one that really was significant in my life was when I was 17 years old, I moved to Paris, France. So this all started in grade 11 when I had actually one of my best friends did an exchange program to Australia. And she came back from a year abroad, and she said, Ashley, this is great. Basically, you get to go to another country without your parents. It's less rules. It's more fun. School's easier. It's going to be great. So I thought this was like a masterful loophole of trying to get out of high school. And so, of course, as soon as I heard about this program, I ran home and told my parents that I was doing an exchange program and I wanted to go to Australia. And unfortunately, Australia was all full. So I had to pick a second country. And we're just all over, hey? There we go. You can go to the next one. Oh, it's not showing now. It's blank. That's okay. We'll roll with it. So anyways, the only other country that I knew anything about was France. And really, let's be like, that was generous, because I didn't know much about France, but I knew about Paris. And I knew that Paris must be fabulous because everybody talks about it and a lot of people write about it and there's lots of movies about it and it seems really romantic and glamorous, so I picked France. And at the time, I can honestly say that it really never crossed my mind that not being able to speak French was a big deal. And in fact, it really didn't dawn on me until, and I promise you this is the truth, until the moment I was standing in the Toronto airport waiting for my Air France flight from Toronto to Paris. And I started hearing all of these like sounds around me. And honestly, for the first time in my life, I realized I didn't understand. Oh, perfect, thank you. Understand the noises that were coming out of someone's mouth. Like, that's how tight-knit my little bubble was for the first 17 years of my life. I lived in this very anglophone little bubble that it wasn't until I was 17 years old that I heard another language. And so, of course, in that moment, I started to panic because it was too late. It was too late to learn French. And so I got to France and I got to Paris, and you know, things started okay. I was put with a host family who spoke French. Their daughter went to an international school. It was in this beautiful suburb west of downtown Paris. And you know, I thought this could be okay. Until the first day of high school. So you can imagine, here I am with my little bike, and I show up at my high school wearing baggy jeans and skate shoes and a big hoodie, because after all, it was the 90s. It was 1999 to be exact. And I find myself surrounded by these teenagers on scooters and mopeds with scarves, smoking cigarettes, looking way too cool. And in that moment, I realized I didn't even know how to introduce myself. I didn't know how to say, I don't speak French. I'm from Canada. I'm here on an internship. And so I just really actually awkwardly followed people around for several weeks. And it took about 3 full months before I could start to put sentences together. And maybe some of you have had that experience where you're new to a place and it feels so altogether foreign, and you have to dig deep in within yourself to kind of figure out, like, how do I make my way in this new place that's so unfamiliar and scary? And you know, that year in Paris was transformational, because my host family ended up being a very abusive one, both physically and emotionally. And I had never been exposed to anything like that before. And simultaneously, while I was struggling with this host family that I'd been placed with, I was falling in love with this country and this city and this exposure to everything international art. And I mean, we all know the history of France, and like the poetry and the literature and the art and history is so full. And so it started to change me. It started to change who I was. And it really forced me to start questioning who I was. How do I belong in this new place? And now that I know all of this, what do I do with it? And anyways, so, you know, I look back on this year now, and I was determined to stay. You know, I never told my parents about any negative thing that was going on, because I was so determined to succeed and to do this on my own, because I had never done anything on my own before. And looking back now, I realized it was that year that I really started my career journey and self-discovery, and learning what I really wanted out of life, like what I was really passionate about. And I know that if it wasn't for that year, I would never have learned French, or studied political science, or done a master's degree, or traveled the world. And I definitely wouldn't have the job I have today. So now looking back, I see how it was all beautifully connected in ways that I really had no control over myself. And each experience provided me these little hints and lessons that helped me discover who I was and what it was I truly desired. And so the last 15 years or so has been a journey collecting all these little treasures of information, helping me kind of move to each preceding chapter. So I don't know if anybody in the audience has heard about the book, The Alchemist. If you have, raise your hand. Okay, great. So this book I got a hold of in my first year of political science. I think an old boyfriend gave it to me, if I'm being honest. But anyway, I fell in love with this book. There was something right away about this story and the journey of this little shepherd who longed to see the world and was wrestling with the purpose of his life. And anyways, the theme is really all about finding his destiny and his purpose. And for me, it took a really long time to understand what it was I really wanted. And my career has been really motivated by this constant yearning and the hope for doing something that was both important to me and impactful in a positive way to someone else. And the treasure that I was after, I thought at first was, that successful career, money and influence and having the power to influence people's lives. And for me, it really was motivated by this altruistic desire to help. But I thought, as a young person, that had to look like the Secretary General of the United Nations, or an international lawyer, or a field worker in war-torn countries. And while I did know that I had this desire to help people, I really also was very pulled and distracted by all of those things that we all are at times, of that egocentric sort of motivations related to financial success or prestige and recognition, and that's just hard when you're young and trying to figure it all out. Now, to be clear, I never actually achieved any of those things. But sometimes the lure of them is distracting. And anyways, without a very clear vision of what I was after, how to get there, I just really honestly took it one step at a time. And this is my favorite quote from the book, and the quote is, "When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it." And whether you believe it's God or the universe or just energy or something unexplainable, I really subscribe to this, and looking back on my life, I see evidence of it. And so I'm going to do the next slide. Where do I have to point this? Anywhere. There we go. Chapter 2. So after I graduated university, I had a girlfriend who had applied to an internship with a Canadian development agency in Sierra Leone. And we were both in political science, and we were super interested in international development. And she had said to me one day, she said, I've applied for this, but I'm not going to get it. And I had a dream that you went, so I think you should apply. I kid you not. And so that's exactly what I did, and that's exactly what happened. I applied, I got it, she didn't, I don't know why. She was much smarter than me. But anyways, I found myself right out of university heading to a country I really knew nothing about other than what I read in the history books. And as I'm sure some of you remember, Sierra Leone in the early 2000s was the poorest country in the world and had just gone through one of the worst civil wars. Mostly because it was fought by children. And I had no idea what I was getting into. But when you're young and straight out of university, you know, you're kind of a little naive and a little cocky, and you think, I've got this, I can do it. And I remember waiting for my flight to Freetown. I was in London, and there was this like old white British guy, and he said, have you ever been to Sierra Leone before? And I said, no. He said, do you like roller coasters? I said, no. He said, well, then you're not going to like Sierra Leone. And honestly, it was a perfect way of explaining it because, you know, my experience there was so up and down. I've never felt happier, and I've never struggled more in terms of, you know, it was the first time I really was exposed to poverty, to suffering, to war, and all the political turmoil and the challenges that country has gone through in that region, and it was humbling. It was profoundly humbling. And I remember, I think this is like, truly, it was like God's way of putting me in my place. But one day, I walked down to a big meeting with the kind of all these very serious individuals, and we were, we kind of, you know, every morning we would start in a huddle, and actually we did a like interfaith prayer meeting. And I, unbeknownst to me, I'd walked into this room with my skirt tucked into my underwear. And I thought I was so cool and so smart. And I feel like that just summarized Sierra Leone for me. It was like I went thinking I was everything, but I was the girl with her skirt tucked into her underwear. Anyway, really, Sierra Leone was that massive lesson of like, girl, you have a lot more to learn. And so, I took that lesson in humility and went back to Canada. And people always used to ask me, like, you know, how has your life changed? Like, what do you do differently now after living in Sierra Leone? Like, how do you think differently? Has it changed you? And this quote from The Alchemist really, like, speaks to this, because it says, the secret of life, though, is to fall 7 times and to get up 8. The simple things are also the most extraordinary things, and only the wise can see them. And this speaks to 2 things. I think, you know, Sierra Leone is an example of being knocked down 7 and getting up 8. The people that I met there, the resiliency, the determination, the support for one another, that was profoundly evident to me living there and getting to know people there. And then the second piece, you know, the simple things are also the most extraordinary. The answer to the question that everybody kept asking me was always, I will never take a hot cup of coffee and a hot shower for granted ever again. And I really haven't. It really is the small things in life that are extraordinary. So here we come to chapter 3. So after Sierra Leone, I went home and did a lot of work with newcomer youth, because I really was so moved by my experience with young people in Sierra Leone that I really wanted to find a way to connect with young people here in Canada and support them in some way. Because again, having gone through, although a very different experience, you know, in Paris, I completely recognize that it was, you know, an opportunity and a privilege, and it was a lot easier in some ways, or in a lot of ways, than newcomer youth experience here. You know, they have no choice, a lot of them. So I really wanted, I wanted to connect with young people and help them feel at home here. And so after a few years of doing that, I had this, like, you know, this pounding of my heart was just like, I want something else. Like, I've got to do something else. This is not good enough. And so I was really faced with this question of, like, I know I need to be more educated. I know I need more experience. And so kind of trying to figure out how best to do that. I applied to 2 different degrees. I had applied to a master's in social work because I wanted to help people, and that was clearly one way I could do it. And then the other was a master's in international development at my dream school, which was the Graduate Institute in Geneva, Switzerland. And I will never forget the day that I got that acceptance email. Nor will I ever get the vision of my dad jumping up and down in the kitchen going like, yippee, you know. He literally shook the kitchen. But it was a miracle to me. I never believed or dreamed that in a million years I would be able to have that experience. And you know, over the next weeks and months that followed, you know, that fear and imposter syndrome started to creep in, and I'm going, oh my gosh, I can't do this. This is, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. They're going to see right through me. And I remember arriving in Geneva and settling into my teeny tiny little dorm room and hiding there for like 24 hours, just like so somehow scared, or actually just trying to muster the courage to like, you know, ignite this new chapter and tackle all of these new experiences. And anyway, after a number of, I think, happenstantial introductions to what became my future best friend group, or my tribe, as I like to call them, you know, I started to get a groove. And the first day of class, it was the headmaster of the whole school who gave us a pep talk and was kind of giving us these pieces of advice. Like, and I'll never forget, and this is, I live by it today, is you need to, if you want to be successful, you need to know when to close the textbook, get out of your house, go pick up a glass of wine with someone, or a coffee if you don't drink wine, or a tea, or whatever, but have a conversation with people. Ask them about what they think about different things, embrace differences, and just simply connect. Learn from people who know better than you. And I believe this is the anchor that remains in my life as I kind of try to navigate different things, is connection is always the most important to getting you closer to what you really want to be doing. Because it's those little hints that people give you, you know, that they see something in you don't see in yourself, or they say, you know, you need to meet this person, or you need to go to this event, or, you know, it was those things that I think really connected me to the next best thing. It wasn't me. It was the connections and the result of those. And anyway, and after he was done talking, he made us all go around the room and say, you know, where we were from and what school we had gone to. And, you know, everybody started saying, okay, I'm Jennifer, I'm from Oxford, and I'm Frank, and I'm from Cambridge, and so, you know, Stanford, etc. It was like all the best schools in the world. And I started to feel small again. And anyway, when they got to me, I said, I'm Ashley. I went to the University of Calgary. And I remember this girl next to me from Harvard, of course, says, you know, is that even a good school? And, you know, I took a breath and I looked at her and I said, not really, but it got me here sitting right next to you. And she and I, with time, became friends, but that really, you know, shut her up, because, like, at the end of the day, none of that really matters. It really doesn't. It's not, it can help you, but it shouldn't also hold you back, right? And that was really like the lesson that Geneva experience was, that, you know, there's only one thing that makes a dream impossible to achieve, and that's the fear of failure. If you believe you can't do something, you'll never do it. If you don't apply, you'll never get in. Sometimes it's as simple as that. I honestly didn't think in a million years I would get into this school, or that I would graduate, or that I would even end up publishing a paper from my time there. You know, I felt like I was failing every day, actually, at grad school. I'm not an academic. I really hate school. I would rather be drinking a glass of wine or a cup of coffee with a friend and having a meaningful conversation. But I never let that stop me from trying. You know, my life motto became, feel the fear and do it anyways. It's not original, but it helped me find those little treasures deep within myself. It's given me the gift of staying connected to my heart. And I gained the confidence in Geneva and some very important information about myself. And like the fancy person said, I ended up getting the opportunity to work for the Korean government, the WMO, World Health Organization. And, you know, I really hated working at the UN. And that's the thing, like, the whole time I was driven towards what I thought was ultimately the goal, which was a fancy UN position, making some positive changes in other people's lives. But I felt like I was so removed from those people that I didn't find joy in it. And I could never find my place. I never found the role. It's a lot of the reason why I had so many opportunities in different roles, because I was so desperate to find the one that felt right. But you know what? It gave me the illusion of success. I liked the way people responded to me when they said, oh, you live in Geneva. Oh, you work at the UN. Look at you, you've made it. And inside, I literally was miserable. And I remember, so before I get there, I was gonna say, you know, like, I thought that was the treasure. That was the treasure, was the UN. But it wasn't. And so, in the leap of faith, I walked into the World Health Organization one day and I put my resignation letter in, and 6 weeks later I moved back to Calgary, Alberta with no plan. No plan. But there was this yearning of like, something is leading me here. But what I had learned along my journey so far was that the right thing is often the hardest. You know, when you're like, I really think I should do this, but I really don't want to. That's the good stuff. Like, that's where the good stuff is. So you should definitely do that. There's a difference between like, I don't want to do this and I don't think I should do this. But when it's just scary, it's probably absolutely the right thing to do. So here I was, chapter 4, final chapter. Well, let's hope not the final chapter, but the final chapter for today. Calgary, the discovery of unexpected joys. So I moved back to Calgary in August 2016, and I had, like I said, no plan. It took a long time to settle, and after a few short projects here and there, I finally got the job offer to take the executive director role at the Duke of Edinburgh Award. And I knew I needed and wanted leadership experience, and I knew I needed to start somewhere. And I didn't know how much, you know, not much about the organization, but I knew it was a youth-focused leadership program. And that was the thing that pulled me there. It's like, the youth piece, I loved this. The leadership piece, ooh, I like that. Ooh, I have the opportunity to be innovative and try something different because I'm not stuck within a massive bureaucracy. And I really am so grateful for that experience, because I knew it wasn't also where I was supposed to end up forever, but I knew it had a purpose. And it was serving me and other people in positive ways. And so after 4 years, me alongside a number of other people did some amazing work, for young people. We took a program that is typically found in private school systems and made it basically, used it for a rehabilitation program within the justice system. And we implemented it in Nunavut and the Northwest Territories and all over Alberta, in Calgary and Edmonton. And we had young people who, because of the program, go back to school, find work, learn how to snowboard or skateboard or do art. Just opened up new opportunities for them. And then after some time, this is actually when COVID started. The program changed a lot. We couldn't have the same interaction in the justice systems. The organization was also changing, and I felt another pull, like change is coming. But I didn't know where that was going to lead me, and it was that moment that actually I was nominated for this Top 40 Under 40, and I remember getting this call, and I have never felt more of not suitable for Top 40 Under 40. I remember when they called me, I was at home. I hadn't showered in days. I was trying to work. I had a 10-month-old at my feet who was sick all the time, and I felt like I was actually failing at everything. And that's when they're like, oh, you're a Top 40 Under 40. I'm like, no, I'm not. But that was also a gift. It's not that I was really the top 40. There's lots of, or under 40. I'm 40 now, so I'm not under 40 anymore. But, there was lots of deserving people out there. It wasn't that I was better than anyone else or doing anything differently. It was, I think, just luck or happenstance or something. But it was a gift that was given to me that helped me move to the next thing. So here's my next favorite from The Alchemist. Remember that wherever your heart is, there you will find your treasure. I moved back to Calgary. I got married. I had a little baby girl. I reconnected with my home, my community, and for the first time in a long time, my heart left me alone. Instead of trying to push me somewhere else, it really kept saying, you need to stay right where you are. And even though my brain really wanted to go to Paris and to Geneva and all the fancy fun places and have those exciting experiences, my heart was calm. And so that really was a sign to me that no, there's purpose here. So this is kind of my little roadmap, This is my journey at finding a purposeful paycheck. Every single chapter along the way gave me a little hint or another lesson about who I was, what I was good at, how I could use my unique gifts or personality in a way that ultimately would serve both my family, myself, and other people. And it's taken a long time to start to figure it out. I've been with Benevity for 2 years. And I remember my first interview with a man named Caleb Wall, who became my boss. We had similar experiences. He was just this international, dynamic, caring, wonderful guy. And I remember thinking, I have got to work with this guy. He's got something I want to be a part of. And 3 months, and I took the role. It was not a leadership role, and I took it on purpose because I really I wanted something different, but I wanted to create space and time to learn and to be with my family. The universe had different plans for me and for Caleb. a few months after I started at Benevity, Caleb was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer and passed away. And I found myself in another leadership role, and in a role that I didn't know very much about. It was a brand new space. It's the first for-profit company I worked for. I had no background in tech, and it was challenging and very intimidating, very humbling. But, you know, tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself, and that no heart has ever suffered when it goes in search of its dreams, because every second of the search is a second's encounter with God and with eternity. And whether you believe in God or not, I really do believe that if you stop letting the fear part hold you back, you realize that it's just never as bad as you think it's going to be. And that we were made to do hard things. You know, we've been given all that we need to survive and do hard things. And so what I know for sure about life is that each time you make a hard decision, you lose something else. And there is suffering that comes along with that. But you can't avoid it, and that the fear of suffering is always harder than the suffering itself. One of my favorite sayings is, you will never be completely at home again because part of your heart will always be somewhere else. That is the price you pay for the richness of loving and knowing people in more than one place. You know, there is a richness to life when you stop trying to avoid hard things and just lean into them, because that's where I have found that the true treasure lies. And so, with that, here's the summary. I married an engineer. He is the opposite of me in every way. He is not an emotional person. He is very practical and logical, and every time that I get super emotional about something, he says, I am going to give you a hot tip for better living. So these are my hot tips for better living today. Number one, your purpose can evolve and grow, and it likely will. And, you know, like Dr. CHIKA said, you know, it's with women especially, you know, you feel like you have to do it all and do it all perfect. I really don't think you can do it all. You can't at least do it all at once. You know, and I think there is a chapter for everything. There's a season for everything. You know, now I look back and I think, you know, there's a season to be fit and young. There is a season to, you know, wear stretchy pants. There's a season to have a clean house, and there's, you know, those other chapters where you just gotta let it go. Because you can't do it all. You can't do it all at once. Number three is, this is kind of from the book, you know, they talk about omens in the book, but I mean, you can think about it as lessons really, but look for the lessons, especially in the hard stuff. You know, like, I mean, I really struggled working at the UN for lots of reasons, but now I look back and I think, oh, you know, it taught me a lot. And what it taught me helped me move forward. Number four is listen to your heart, if you haven't picked up on that theme yet, especially when it's like beating really fast. Feel the fear and do it anyways. Don't forget about the work in. I had a doctor's appointment the other day, and my doctor said, you know, how's the work in going? And I was like, what does that mean? She's like, you know, the opposite of working out. How's the working in? And I was like, I have no idea what you are talking about. She's like, you know, like self-care. And I was like, I love this new term. Like, I've never heard about this too. Like, she looked at me like I had four heads, like I should know what the work in means. But I love that. Like, don't forget about the working in, whatever that means to you. Number 7 is suffering is always part of the journey. So if you think you're going to get to where you want to go without pain, good luck. And honestly, 8, this is the most important thing for me, the kindness piece. Like, I always look back like at different, relationships in my life, and some of them are really like, we met randomly. I remember walking through Geneva, and there was like this very lost backpacker, and she, like a lot of Canadians, like she had like a really large Canadian flag on her backpack. And so I'm like, okay, she needs help. Anyway, we just, she was lost and she needed some direction. And we ended up, I said, well, I'm going that way. I'm actually going to have a coffee. You could join me. We had a coffee, and then, we became friends, and we're still friends today. And it was like 15 years ago. But those small acts of kindness, and like kindness and also connection, like being open to meeting someone new, having a different conversation. And this is why I always say yes to these things as well, because I think you just really never know who you're going to meet, the conversations you're going to have, and what that's going to mean to someone else or even to yourself. So anyway, that is all I have for you today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ashley. Can we put our hands together again for Ashley? Thank you so much. That was excellent. I was just scribbling, and taking photos, because you can't write everything down. So I have lots of questions. I found it very exciting. And it's funny how we might all be headed in what I would think is a similar direction. We all want to make impact, to do extraordinary things with our lives. It's funny how we all have different ways of getting there, and how many times, even though we are implementing the same idea, so to speak, it takes people different times to get to those places, right? So your journey is such a different one than I've heard before, Ashley. I have lots of questions for you, and in our chat, we're going to see how much we can address, but thank you so much for that. Without wasting too much time, we'll have our next speaker, Dr. Jacqueline Musabende, come up in a few minutes. This past June, I met Dr. Jacqueline, and it doesn't seem like I just met her, because we really struck a fantastic conversation and a good friendship. So in June, there was the Calgary Black Achievement Award, and Dr. Jacqueline was nominated in the education category, which she won. And I was there for this, so yeah, that's worth celebrating. Congrats again, Dr. Jacqueline. Excellent work that you do across the country and even outside as well. And I was there being nominated the second time, but still didn't win. So, so we had, Dr. Jacqueline, I forget exactly how we connected, but I know I did see a message from you on LinkedIn, and then she said to me, oh, hey, Chika, we have to meet. And I was like, okay, fantastic. Let's make an arrangement to have lunch sometime, and then we had a fantastic lunch. We were talking, and we just went on, and then we left there with all these plans with what we're going to do together going forward. So it's so fantastic that, every once in a while you're in situations where you meet people who really do leave a lasting impact on you. And that's the kind of relationship I know that Dr. Jacqueline and I are building, because, it's really one of us sharpening each other and really kind of pulling out from ourselves, that best version and what next. So we both find that we're not people who are satisfied with what we're doing. We want to keep doing more, and that's exactly how she is. People always say to me, oh, Dr. Chika, how many hours do you sleep? And I say to them, and then I met Dr. Jacqueline, and she's the exact same kind of person I am. She sends me messages at 1 o'clock 2 a.m. and we're like, oh my God, and then, so we're able to respond just because, we're very like-minded people. Again, similarly, well, in the same direction where Ashley's teaching was going, Dr. Jacqueline is going to tell us about, her own story and how she's really found her passion. I want to say she's one of those very few people who are lucky to see that what they're passionate about is also what their profession is, what they're building their career around. So there are very few of these people. You often find that people are working or employed in this, building a career in that, but aren't quite passionate in those places. So they're having to balance these two things. Without too much talking, can we play?
Dr. Musabenda has global professional experience in Africa, Europe, and North America, having worked for organizations such as the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and the African Development Bank, in addition to working for multinational corporations and international banks, such as Experian, BNP Paribas, and La Société Générale. Jacqueline is on the Board of Governors of Mount Royal University, a member of Statistics Canada's External Advisory Committee on Non-Profit Organizations, NPO, and their diversity, and a member of the Board of Directors of the Association for Nonprofit and Social Economy Research, ANSA, serving on the Governance Committee and as Secretary of the Board. She is co-chair of Joint Equity Diversity Committee at Mount Royal University, and she is on the Federal Nonprofit Data Coalition, FNDC, as chair of Nonprofit Sector Diversity and Equity Committee led by Imagine Canada. She is recipient of the 2018 Academy of International Business, AIB, QIB Best Paper Award in International Business Education, and the 2019 Academy of International Business Best Panel in Experiential Learning in International Business Curriculum. Jacqueline is also the recipient of the 2023 Calgary Black Achievement Awards in the Education category. She has been recognized as one of the top Black people making history in Calgary in 2023 by Calgary Regional Immigrant Employment Council, CRIEC. Jacqueline holds a master's degree in Geographical Applications and Information Systems and a PhD in International Business. She has a Project Management designation, PMP registered trademark, and is bilingual.
Thank
you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm just looking at the things they say about me, and sometimes I'm just wondering, when did I do all these things again? My name is Jacqueline Musabende. I was born in Rwanda. It's a small country in Africa. I think you've heard about Rwanda. Unfortunately, our story is most of the time told about genocide. So I was born there. I went to Paris. Now I do remember friends asking me, when did you go to Paris? In 2004. I don't remember what I told you. For my studies, and this where I started to work for multinational, international organizations. Then I moved from Paris to Calgary. I don't know if you have my presentation. Can you try, please? So when I looked at Ashley's presentation, I was so impressed because I like to see people talking about their journey. I always wanted to talk about my own journey, but it is so complex. It doesn't follow your regular, journey. I think it will take me probably 2-3 weeks to talk about my own journey. Just to remember that my father died when I was very young. And something kind of tricked in my head, my mind, that I needed to do something to help my family. So everything. I will orient everything about how do I get my family out of there. I was very young. So I always admire people who are able to put together a journey you followed, because mine is very different. So this is the title I choose for you today to talk about success. When I was asked to talk to people, I just went back to my experience with this whole thing of motivation and women. I was in this country, I've lived in many countries, and one of my friends invited me to this event. The event was called Successful Women. So she invited me. I was very happy to attend this event. So when I came in the room, you could feel that these women are really, really successful. You look around, it's like, wow. So I was there, and this woman started to talk. Say, hey, how are you? How are you doing? So one woman is asking the other, hey, you didn't talk to me about your ring. But when I talk about rings, real rings. Oh, she went on to say, oh, I didn't tell you. My husband just came from this country. He bought me this one. So the other one close by say, oh, you know, my husband was there too. Look what he brought me. So the conversation for about 30 minutes, we are networking. This woman, every single moment they're talking, it's about what their husband have done for them. At the time, I was not even married. I wasn't even able to talk about which Walmart my husband went to find me a ring, so I was out of job. Then at a given moment, they started to look at me, oh, there is a new person. Hey, how are you doing? Very nice woman. Hey, so, oh, we heard you came from this country. Did your husband brought you here? I was like, nah. It's me, haha. I brought myself here. So from that moment, I started just to wonder, what exactly is a successful woman? I really have nothing against, as a woman, to find a good husband who's going to make you successful. That's when I started to check, okay, thank you, to think about a success is actually about you. You have to define what is a success for you. That's it. So if your success is to get a husband who's successful, which is very good, bring you, I don't know, whatever rings, whatever he does, that's good. You're successful. But that's your success. It's not mine. Well, I left this place, and since this moment, I never attended those events of empowering a woman, not at all. Because I thought I can maybe design my own success. So now, whenever I will be able to use this, here we go. I wanted to share with you how I live my success, what I mean by being successful. For me, it's very simple. I start by telling myself, this is about state of mind. So I was checking what is it exactly, state of mind. So there are so many definitions, you know, psychologists, they have definitions, everybody have. But for me, I'm gonna go with this one. There's one definition, they say that it's mental state at a specific moment in time. So why do I go with state of mind? Is because I need the power over my dreams. I have a control because it's coming from my mind, my own brain. To do so, I need it to be in a state where I control my dreams, my success. Now, I've never heard about activists. So I've heard that, but I didn't know that I said whenever you want something, all entire world is going to conspire to get you that. My experience is the opposite. If I have a dream, ambitions, entire world is coming for me. That's not my only, I'm not the only one with this experience. Most of the time, though, black women, whenever you wanted to go for that, hold on, things are coming. What is coming? Those are barriers. There's so many barriers when you have your dreams. I wanted to stay here. Okay, stereotypes. Who do you think you are? Who are you? Or you are not in your place. There are expectations people have. How we should behave, what you should do, you shouldn't do. On the way toward your dreams, there are setbacks also. It's not like you will wake up, dream, and then get everything you want. It doesn't work like that in real life. Then, of course, how do I trust myself to be able to achieve those dreams, even to really get where I want to be? So many challenges. Then there is something else, the risk-averse culture. Tell you why I'm talking about this one. You keep this in mind, risk-averse culture, which we live in here in Calgary. Canada is a risk-averse country. Don't get involved in nothing, Don't start anything. What are you doing? So you have a path. Everybody know where you have to go. Do not try to leave your lane. Now, this is Mandela, so we can trust Mandela when he says, a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. We know what he went through. He had a dream for his people, for his country. He never gave up. The same thing for us. You have your dreams, then mountains are starting to come your way. Never give up. Keep this in mind. Do not give up. The reason being, by not giving up, you are building your resilience. So I hear people talking about, the resilience of Africa and the resilience and this and the other thing. Something you build. Because you have a dream and you are aware that difficulties, things, barriers are coming for you. So you're aware. I have my dreams, and no one said that I'm going to get there easier, but I know that you are coming. I know that these difficulties are coming. So you go back to the state of mind. This time is going to be you, issues, difficulties, stereotypes against my mind. And here you go. You will never beat my mind. Because you see here, it's mine. I saw you coming. Now, When I look at, again, what Mandela said, so when you look at this picture, actually, that's how I live my life. My life is designing. When I understand something, I design it. So I can use so many other like softwares, but I don't like that. I wanted to point in my mind how things look like. So that's how, for me, a success or a dream, or what Mandela said, look like. Have ambitions, and I know I'm surrounded by mountains of difficulties, but I know where I'm going now. There's a big question here. What do you call winning? Is it to get a lot of money, good career, whatever you feel is? Well, for me, winning is I challenge everybody, everyone, everything I've seen in this world. You tell me that I can't do it? Good, let's see. I wanted to challenge status quo. Anyone, anything, a system that has been established, and forgetting me, I will challenge this system. And of course, it doesn't stop there for me. It's my way of paving the ways for other people to follow. I am a teacher, teaching. Look at some student. I can just kind of relate to them, some of them. And when I started to relate to someone, I tell them, hey, in 10 years, 20 years, whatever it's going to take, you are going to be teaching here. You will take my place. I know how I got myself there, so I can tell you how to do that. But I won't lie that that's it for me, winning or success is, you challenge, the system, and then you pave the way for other people. You started to look a little bit suspicious. No, that's not true. You got a good money, good career. You do what you want. You can travel business class if you want. There are so many things. Yeah, you were successful. That's what I call everything between. So now, talking about resilience zone. Is it Danny here? So what Danny is going to resign because she couldn't get a hold on me. But she's so resilient. Then she got me here. See, it does work. So now, it's good to dream and to win whenever we get there. But on your way, dreaming, winning, failures and everything else around you, keep this in mind. We said that for us, success, state of mind. We have a control over what we're doing. Those who are going to church, there is, I think I will leave you with that, in the book of Jeremiah 17:5. Cursed is a person who put their faith in a man or a woman, in a human being, and you forget your God. For those who believe, yes, you go for God, Jesus, whomever you want, or, whoever you believe in. Those who don't believe, it may be this force, which is for me, my mind, because God gave me this head, a brain, gave me the mind. So what I do with that? For me, a success is not only going out there, asking people to open doors for me, supporting me, because that's what you are doing, all of us. It's also about me giving back. And I wanted to show you what looks like for me giving back. I started by giving back to myself. It's very important. We forget sometimes to give back to ourselves. So you're a driven person. Well, I can go out there and buy myself whatever I wanted to buy myself because I succeeded on a project and I'm so happy. I'm giving it back to myself. I can also take a break. You know, Chika said I work late. It's true. I can work up to 3, 4 a.m. and I have a meeting at 8. I'm fine with that if it's something really I like to do. Surprisingly, I can sleep 24 hours, non-stop. I don't eat, I don't do anything. I sleep, I wake up, I turn myself in the bed. I sleep 24 hours. I can do that. I just have to tell it to my mind, it's time to take a break, and I do that. And I feel good about it because I'm giving it back to myself. I've been working for a week on a project, sleeping probably 2 hours, 2, 3, 4 hours a day. Well, if I wanted to take 24 hours in my bed, I do that. I can give it back to myself. Now, giving back to me is also about building a supportive network. Sometimes you go to this event and you see people networking, how people network. It's very serious. Someone comes to you, what do you do? Go to the next. Because they are looking for something. But don't forget to give back. When I go to events like that, I tend to stay far, far away. Very, very far away. That's where you meet people who have something. Not something I wanted to take, but something I can grow. Because maybe I've been there, and my mind is always, you don't take. You need it to give. But to whom do you give? Sometimes you wanted to give it to people who look like you, who have the same things like you. No. Actually, that's not how it works. The real giving back is to take someone from where you were 20 years ago and say, this is a person, I'm going to get to them where I am. So you go for supporting people, mentorship. You share your knowledge, whatever you know, your experience. You start a collaboration with people. So how did I get to actually contact CHIKA? I'm very selective, actually, when I wanted to work with people, do mentorship or things like that. Extremely selective. So something surprised me in her. We had this incredible event. People won awards, and then all of us were saying how happy we are or whatever, showing off. She did something incredible. She's the only one person who was nominated and didn't get the award who said something nice. She congratulated everybody. And I thought it was incredible. I said, there is something in this person. And that's how I contacted you, actually. Because you can, in your journey, read the people. Don't be scared by being humble or being yourself. Because nowadays, when you see, for example, motivational events, appearance, you needed to look a certain way, you needed to behave a certain way. It's so scary. We are in the world, which is scary. You feel like I will not get there. I don't know, you're shy or you're... For me, I never care about those things. Again, because I decided that my success is the state of my mind. That's your business. If you want me to look a certain way, I still am in control of my life. And let me tell you that there are people out there who are real. Because in this world, we don't have so many real people, things. And it's especially when you are real, well, that's not what the world is looking for. The reason why you need even to create your own place where you want it to be. So then, remember to support equity, diversity, and inclusion. There's something funny. As you saw, I work a lot on equity, diversity, and inclusion. So they sometimes say, okay, so we're going to start trainings about this, and then they wanted to train me. Let's get real. You have a white male, middle-aged male, wanted to teach me. You guys, you look at me about how not to discriminate people. Most of the time, that's my reaction. Like, really? But then, guess what? We all of us need to do this whole thing of equity, diversity, and inclusion. And when I'm rolling in my eyes, I'm being hypocrite, actually, because I'm coming from Rwanda. We had a genocide. It was about discrimination, actually. Because people are not in the same ethnic group as you, so you think you have to kill them. That's the thing, actually, in equity, diversity, and inclusion. But that's not the only one thing. The reason why, as even people who are in, sometimes we say marginalized, but women, equity-seeking groups, let's find it that way. We need to open our eyes to talk about equity, diversity, and inclusion. Because whenever you meet challenges, when you have equity, diversity, inclusion in your mind, the first thing is to look at different perspectives. That's always how I do. Why this person is opposing me? There are different reasons. I have my will. You can come up with 100 reasons. As you are supporting equity, diversity, inclusion, when you are met with challenges, you start to open your perspectives. Put yourself in the shoes of the person. So as an example, you are in a company, there are promotions, the things they pass you wonder why. Well, it may be because of discrimination against women, it may be also something else. Can you try to be a leader once and see how many possibilities, reasons? So why would you do that? It's because you need to get to the yellow box there, creativity and innovation. Every time you think differently, maybe there is an if this is the case, when you have a mind of creativity and innovation, you find a solution. If this is the reason why they're not giving me promotion, then this is my solution. Then if this is the reason, but imagine when you have only one perspective, because you don't support equity, diversity, inclusion, well, you have just one perspective and you're not happy, you lost, and you don't even have mind to come up with solutions. So that's how I live my life. And sometimes people are asking me, well, you're doing so much things, that's just loud. Actually, no, I never see things like that. And things for me will happen in a way we are going to do that together. The reason why I am involved in almost everything is this. Any fool can know, anyone. Like now, we're talking, so you know who I am now. But the point is not to know. The point is to understand. What does it exactly mean? I know, but I don't understand. So that's how I navigate this world. You come in a new culture. I don't know, in a country, they have a new culture. You started to see things around you. Say, oh my God, now I understand. But actually, when you understand, you act. You act. We will see when you understand. You are different, your actions are different from someone who just know. Now, this is the moment I'm going to share with you how I live actually my life. When I left home, it was around 4:45. So I saw that this event is going to go on up to 8:45. If you believe that I can spend my 4 hours just talking, it's a big mistake. That's really 4 hours. I need to produce something in 4 hours. That's what we're going to do. So all of us here, we're going to dream. And after dreaming, we're going to give back. This is what I wanted to do, giving it back to CHIKA. Because she invited me to be here, and I'm very, very happy to see you, to be with you. And I think the time she puts in preparing this whole thing is not easy. No, I can't pretend to be able to organize any event. But when we're giving it back, I want all of us here to do something for me. It's not going to take long. It's going to take probably a couple of minutes. We're going to dream and to throw back something back. What I'm talking about, if you came here, spend 4 hours listening to my incredible, life, trying to, it's very good because it can change your life. Like you see, for example, I always cite people I really admire, like Nelson Mandela. For me, it's an incredible experience. The man has spent years and years in a prison, and when he came out of prison, I don't know, maybe people were expecting an angry old man. No, he was just smiling at everybody, say, oh, let's have a peace, whatever. That's incredible. So I want us today to dream again, I insist. We're going to leave this place with a project, all of us. We are going to, you may be giving back to yourself because you spend 4 hours, you're here. Okay, give back to yourself, give back to someone you want, but I wanted to see something. What if all of us in this room put together our mind, come up with something? Should we just come here and sit and talk and say good and go back? Because again, success is not only what they give to you, it's what you give, either to yourself or to the world. Who wanted to dream with me? Anyone who has a dream who wanted to share with us? I have a project, I would like to accomplish this. Anyone, really? Okay, people who don't dream. Ah, we have a dreamer.
Hi, my desire is to support pregnant young ladies who decide not to go for abortion, but they want to keep the child and go back to school. So I have a desire to help them out somehow.
Okay, thank you so much. So this is like a business you wanted to do? Or just like a non-profit you wanted to help?
Non-profit.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone else? Anyone else who has a dream? A dream? All right. Okay. So, who thinks in this room that you have experience or something to share you can help her understand at least this world of non-profit? Anyone who wanted just to say something to her? Anyone? No? Perfect. So I have something for you. If really you wanted to start a project, I'm a teacher, okay? I teach how to put together projects, and I really wanted to help you with that, okay? I want you to invite you to come in September when I start teaching, but before that, of course, we'll work together. We need to come to my class, one of my classes, to talk to my student. Tell them about your project, and then from there, we will build you a project. It's a promise. Okay. So we will. So it's a long process, you know. You have to start the project. You need to find, of course, the founders, people who are going to give you money and everything else. But I'm so happy to work with you to get your dreams really come true. Okay? Okay. Okay, so thank you so much, everybody who don't dream. I do have my own dream. And includes everybody in here. I'm organizing an event at my university, Monroe University. I believe that if you are in this room, there is a reason you are here. You just didn't come. And you have a story to tell. I want all of you in this room. You are not to get, you need to get away from me. I want really you to be part of my event. I'm organizing my event in October, you know, so when we start our academic year. And I really, really want all of you to be part of this event. I wanted to hear from you. It's not like, well, I have a journey, but I believe that you do have even a better journey you can share with people. You will have your own stage and then share with other people what has been your journey. So thank you very much. Again, remember your dream. Whenever you started to dream, there will be difficulties. That's not a problem as long as you think in terms of state of mind. To this moment, this is what I wanted to do. And no one, nothing is going to stop me from doing that. They can delay, but they will never get you. And remember to throw some things back. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Can we put our hands together for her? Okay, so that concludes our lecture session. And so we're going to take a quick 5 to 10 minute break, during which, you know, I would like us to put some questions down that we're going to answer when we come back. So move around, stretch your legs, grab some snacks, have something to drink. We'll be back in 5-10 minutes for our conversation with the speakers where they can answer your questions. So thank you. See you soon.
I'll be talking about career growth. If you're feeling stuck in your career, how to traject your career to the next level, how to grow your career. And I'll be giving you tips and tricks that has worked for me based on my experience, right? So the lens that I'm going to be delivering this speaking engagement is what I've gone through. So just a little bit about me. I'm going to take you back because I've been in this country for 27 years, but I've had about 23 years in corporate Canada, working and growing my career. So I'll take you back to my story. So this will be like storytelling, and I'll be giving you tips and tricks as to how I was able to grow my career. So right now, what do I currently do? I'm the Chief Compliance Officer for Olympia Trust Company. It's a financial services, non-deposit taking financial institution. And then, so it's a C-suite position and an executive position. I also own my own business, Ufadike Professional Corporation, UPC, where we provide anything from personal to corporate taxes, audit, forensic accounting, investigations, and consulting. And then my third stream is I do sit on boards. So just like I was introduced, I sit on 4 boards, not-for-profit and Crown Corporation, and I chair their audit, finance, and risk committee. I wanted to make sure that I say that because every single stream or every single one of those lines of business, I call it for myself, has
of the Kano Crusade very shortly. But before then, John chapter 1.
Giving me some kind of experience and help me traject my career to the next level. And I'll explain why and how. So let me take you back on a journey. I immigrated, so I'm from Nigeria. I immigrated when I was 16 to Vancouver with my family. When I came, I think at that time I was too young to get into university, and I got into college. So while I was in college, I was working at a clothing store. At that time, there was an RBC branch right beside the store I was working, and I would see people just dress up and go into the branch and they work, and I always had this yearning for corporate Canada. I just wanted to do that. And I said to my manager at that time, I really want to be a bank teller. And she looked at me and said, why would you want to do that? That's one of the lowest paying profession at that time. Bank tellers were getting paid $7.70. If you worked for tellers at that time in Vancouver, it was one of the highest paid position for students, at $13. And then clothing was about maybe $11, $12. So she looked at me and was like, why would you want to leave what you have now and do that? So this is lesson number 1, because that singular decision that I made was the genesis of my career in banking, right? But I didn't listen to her. I did up my resume. At that time, they didn't have any online portal for you to submit. I walked downtown to the office, submitted my resume, and then I got called, went through the interview, and got offered the job as a bank teller. That was the highlight of my time at that time. But my happiness was short-lived. I was working as a bank teller, really enjoyed it, but I got robbed twice at gunpoint. So I was the token teller that the bank robber came. So that experience, not just once, but twice. So that experience was quite traumatic. And because of that, I said to myself, I would never do frontline again. So around the same time, I graduated from college and I was looking for a university. I kind of hated Vancouver. It wasn't really cool at that time. But I had heard about this city called Toronto that was hustling and bustling with a lot of people. So I said to myself, I applied to the University of Toronto, and I got in. And I went to my parents and I said, I was 19 at that time. I told them I want to move to Toronto. And they said, but you don't have a job. How are you going to support yourself? So then I started looking for a job. But I knew that I didn't want to do frontline. I went through the roster and I found this position called a fraud analyst. Had no experience, didn't even know what that meant, but I applied for it. So lesson number 2. There's statistics out there that show that women, as women, we don't apply for things until we feel that we're 100% qualified. But men, they're more confident, even if they're 20, 30, 40% qualified or meet the requirements, they will go ahead and apply for it. So my advice for you today is, if you see something that you think you are interested in, that is part of your career path, whether you have the direct experience or not, as long as you have transferable skill set, go ahead and do it, because what's the worst that could happen? They tell you no, and then you move on, right? But back to the story. So I applied to the role as a fraud analyst, didn't think I was going to get it, got an interview, and I guess myself and the hiring manager, we just hit it off. She liked me, I liked her, I got hired. But like I said, that was the genesis of my career, really in banking and in fraud and forensics. So I started working at RBC, at the National Fraud Detection Group, which is very interesting, investigating different types of debit and credit card fraud. So at the time, there was a lot of fraud with credit card, because the magnetic strip at that time, we didn't have the technology, the chip technology that we have today that is, really good. At that time, the point of compromise was just everywhere, right? So lots of investigation. So I really loved it. So did that for 2 years, and then I got promoted to become the assistant manager, investigating different types of internal Royal Bank defalcation. So when internal staff steal, right? And then 9/11 happened. They introduced this thing called the Bill C-25, which is the Anti-Money Laundering and Terrorist Financing Act. And they tapped me to lead that department. Didn't know anything about it, but transferable skills, right? That's what I keep saying. Transferable skills, investigation, you're following the money. Whether it's for fraud or for money laundering purposes, you're doing that. So I was in the bank for a total of 6 years. And I looked at my resume and I said, this is good, but I think I need more. So lesson number 3, get uncomfortable with being comfortable. I know that a lot of times you're in your role, you can even do it while you're sleeping, it's not challenging anymore, but it's just easy because you're getting easy money. But that is a slippery slope, and it's a very challenging place to be. It's very risky, because you're there, you're comfortable, you're not being challenged, but the money is good, you're not growing, but hey, what it is. And if you keep doing that, you find yourself being stuck, because you'll not be motivated to do more, right? You would never grow your career or trajectory to the next level if you're very comfortable. Once you're very comfortable and you stop learning, kick yourself in the behind, it's time to move on, right? So, like I said, I was at the bank for 6 years, and around that time, there was this new field called forensics, forensic accounting. Nobody knew what it was. I was curious, and I thought to myself, I think I'm going to pursue this. And at that time, the only firms that were offering this type of positions were consulting companies, right? And of course, again, I applied and I got in. But I left a leadership managerial role to take an analyst role. So sometimes, so this is lesson number 4, it's okay to go back, reset, to go forward, right? And I always say career growth is not always vertical. It could be horizontal, where you're stepping aside and you're garnering and gaining all the breadth of experience. And that experience is transferable to help traject you to the next level. So I took a lower role as a fraud analyst for a consulting company. Really loved it, and that was one of the best experiences I could have gotten, because it wasn't myopic, it wasn't narrow. I could do investigations for different types of company across a spectrum, right? So when I'm speaking to a client, I can draw my experience from this company, completely different. So that was great, meeting different clients, and I was growing in my breadth of experience. And not only that, in the consulting firms, there's different arms, right? So not only can you talk about doing forensics, you could go shadow tax, you could do other types of consulting, mergers and acquisitions, so you're learning, right? So that was good. So I did that for 2 years, but I had to leave because of course, with consulting world, work, family, life balance. I was getting married at that time. I wanted to start a family. I used to go to work at like 6 in the morning, but wouldn't leave till like 1 a.m., so it was taking a toll. So I said to myself, okay, I need something more stable. And then I started working for OSFI, which is a regulatory body that supervises financial institutions and life insurance company. Again, still growing my career. And then myself and my husband decided to move to Alberta, Calgary, because we wanted to own and operate our own accounting practice. So that's how we started off with Ufodike Professional Corporation. So we did that full-time for a while. And then we decided to go back in industry, because I always say you can never be in Alberta and not work for oil and gas, right? So decided to go back into industry, working for Enbridge, leading their forensics, compliance team. And then fast forward to today, so let me not take you through my career in a nutshell. Fast forward to today, I'm now the Chief Compliance Officer for Olympia Trust Company, and I oversee regulatory compliance, policy management, privacy for the entire organization. So that's my work history in a nutshell. So in all, I had worked for 6 companies, and in these 6 companies, I was able to grow, learn, garner experience, right? But the top 5 tips that I would leave with you today on how to grow your career. The first one is, leaning in. I think that as women, we've been shown to really underestimate our abilities. We tend to shy away from all those assertive or leadership roles that propel us to shine, right? We'd rather be followers than leaders. So what I'm here to tell you today is that, at work you may be asked, there may be a new project that is going on that you have no knowledge about, like nothing, you know nothing about that project. I want you to put up your hand to lead it. It will be very scary, but leading it will give you a chance to showcase your abilities, to learn about leadership skills, to learn new skills that you haven't learned before. Then you're being a leader and people are seeing you in that light that they haven't seen you before. So that tomorrow when there's something else, they remember you and they can call you to say, hey, you led that project, it was very successful, let's tap her to do that again. And on your resume, you've garnered leadership skills even though you're not in a managerial position. So this is what I mean by transferable skills, and you're able to speak confidently about those type of skills, right? So leaning in is one, so just showing and in opportunities that showcase leadership skills and opportunities for you to shine. The other one is learning up, right? Knowledge is power. We all know that, and we've heard that time and time again. And it's by continuously learning that you amplify your power. So for me, I always say, I have a lot of letters after my name, and it's not by accident. For every role that I've had to garner the requisite education to help burnish my skill set. So when I walk into the room or somebody's reading my bio, they think, wow, she knows what she's talking about. Whether I do, whether I don't, doesn't matter, but you think so, right? So it's always perception that counts, and that's very important, right? Never underestimate your ability to continue learning, because when you stop learning, as the saying it goes, you die, really, right? So knowledge is power. So always focus on your professional development, and it doesn't matter what it is, so just keep learning. The next one is really have a plan. Know where you want to be, I would say in 5 years from now. Even if you don't know, just have a plan. Make a plan of things that make you happy. I always say, that make you happy. I remember when I first came to this country, I used to go on, I think at that time it was Workopolis, and I would just search up, like top paying jobs. And I would see like CEOs, CFOs, CCOs. And I would say to myself, at that time I was 16, that's what I want to do. How will I get there? I don't know, but I just used to see that and I thought, I know I want to make money. I know I want to be an executive one day. And just have a plan, right? It could be a 2-year plan, a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, or you just need to have a plan of where you want to be, doing things that make you happy. And like I talked about, career growth is not always vertical, right? It could be horizontal, where you are, stepping aside to garner experience that will grow your breadth and depth of experience that are transferable to helping you traject yourself to the next level. I also talked about getting uncomfortable with being comfortable. Don't ever forget that. And then my last tip is be very self-aware and build your own personal brand. I think this is the one time where I would tell you that you should worry about what people say about you in the corporate environment. Because I've been on executive tables where you have a leader speak negatively about one of their staff. I don't know the staff, but guess what? That's my impression. It's now left an impression on me about that individual, right? So I always say in the workplace, you want to have a work buddy or a coach or a mentor or somebody who can tell you objectively what they think about you, how you did in your presentation, or how you're doing at work, period. Somebody that you trust, right? Like I said, this is the one time I'll probably tell you you should worry about, you know, what other people have to say about you, because it's about your own personal brand. It's always very important to know your blind spots and work on them every day, right? Because everybody else can likely see your blind spots except you, right? You really don't know what you're not good at, but you think you're good at that. So that's why it's always good to have like a corporate mentor to say, hey, I think I did well in that presentation, but how did I really do? Did I really hit the nail on the head, or was I just off the mark, right? So that's really my tips for you for career advancement and how to grow your career. But at the end of the day, be yourself. Don't settle for less. Always keep growing. Always keep yearning and always keep wanting more. Don't settle. Don't settle, don't settle, and get uncomfortable with being comfortable. Thank you.
So we'll take a quick 10-15 minute break, and then we'll come back for lesson 2. But I want to ask that in the meantime, can you prepare your questions? Just so that when we're done, we're going to have a quick chat with all the speakers and then kind of ask questions at that time. All right, thank you. See you soon.
Design, an award-winning architectural and interior design firm specializing in residential design across Canada.
So thank you for coming out this evening to listen to our speakers, Ashley TEDHAM and Dr. Jacqueline Musabende. So can we put our hands together for the speakers again? So as is our custom, after such a fantastic, few minutes of learning and all that information, we like to ask a couple of questions just so that we're sure we're really taking something away in terms of our own personal burning questions. And so I've got a few questions here that we're going to see if we can pull some answers out of our speakers this evening. My direct questions to either of you, but if you do want to add something, even though it's to Dr. Jacqueline or to yourself, feel free to add. The more the merrier. Yeah, so again, thank you so much for very, very insightful teaching. I find that one of the best ways to teach people is from experience. Many times you save people the hassle of having to go through those hurdles, that are definitely avoidable. So just to kick off our question this evening, there's a very popular conversation about passion and purpose, right? And many times when you hear people speak about these two concepts, what you hear is people say, purpose must be priority, because it's when you're working with purpose that you know that you're really kind of making the impact that you want. But there's also the argument for passion, right? Because it's only something you're passionate about that you're able to sustain. So I don't know what your thoughts are about that. Where should a person want to focus more attention? Where exactly is where we should be leaning more towards? Ashley, you can start the question.
Yeah, I think this is actually something that I've personally struggled with a lot because, I think some people know what their passion is right away, and I think for me personally, it took a long time to figure it out. There was things I loved, but I was never really clear on what I really wanted to do. And I remember even my father said, "You must go to university. I don't care what you take, but you must go to university." And I was like, "No, I don't know." And I remember he enrolled me in university and put me in all economics courses because he was like a financial guy. So he put me in all financial courses and economics, and then I unrolled myself from all of those and chose like just a mix of all sorts of different things, which ultimately I think was the right thing because I really just needed to start exploring. I started, my first 2 years of university were general studies until they literally called me and said, "You can't get a degree in general studies, you have to pick something." And it was only after a couple of years that I was like even still really struggling with I don't even know what I'm good at or what I really, there's a lot of things I like, but nothing that I'm passionate about. And that's hard because I think, especially young people, they're just follow your passion and, that drive and be successful. But if you don't know which direction you're headed, you just feel like you're wandering aimlessly and you feel really lost. And I felt really lost for a long time. And that's why I think in my personal experience, those connections and that constant searching for hints and lessons and almost testing the world around me, do I like this or do I like that? I mean, I've had millions, well, not millions, I'm not that old, but a lot of different jobs. And I started in different directions and then backed up and went the other way. And, so I think the UN is one of those, right? Where I thought I was passionate about that. And then I realized I wasn't. And I think that's why I say your passion and your purpose can evolve and change, and it will likely for some of us more than others. I still don't have one thing I'm passionate about. I am passionate about feeling like I have purpose. And that could be a variety of things, because I feel like even though I was at the UN, when I was at the UN or when I was working at the Duke of Edinburgh Award, I wasn't passionate about those things necessarily, but I felt I had purpose, and that is what I was passionate about. You know, I am meant to be here to do something, to learn something, to give something. And even though I didn't know what that was, it's just a state of being. And like you were saying about your state of mind, like, okay, I know this isn't everything I want, but there's lessons to be learned here and things to build on. And so that's a very long answer, but I think it is something that each individual have to wrestle with, because I think some people, and I know people, you know, I have friends that were passionate about medicine since university, and like they were passionate about becoming a doctor, and that was clear to them. For some of us, it's not, and I think sometimes that's even harder because you just feel like you're flapping out there in the wind. You know? Anyway, that's my answer.
Dr. Jacqueline, want to take a stab at the question?
Yeah, thank you so much. For me, I'm kind of a passionate person from whatever I wanted to do. But I think as I grow up, I am obsessed with problem solving. That's why every time I'm going to do something, for me, it's just like, oh my God, I can't sleep before I do that. I don't remember, there's something actually. When I was going to school, like a high school, there's something I'm very bad at, drawing. I'm horrible at drawing. It is sad because my dad and my younger brothers, they are very good. So even with that, it was not boring in a classroom. I would try, get to just say an F or a D, but really very bad. However, everything I do, I always do with passion. And then people will ask me, how? Because I choose. But when I say that, I wanted to bring you back in my childhood, where going to school, to university, I didn't choose, actually. So you pass the exam, they orient you somewhere. For example, I didn't have a time to say, oh, am I going to do accounting or IT or something else? There was no choice like that. You're happy, lucky, you are going to school. You go there and do that. Now, I always try to understand how I went from not having a choice to establish a situation where now I do what I want. I can choose what I wanted to do. I have so many projects, and I'm passionate about my project, all of them, because I choose them. But again, as I try to understand where this is coming from, it's really, I am obsessed with problem solving. So like we're sitting here in this room, I can tell you that I have like 10 projects just by sitting in this room. This can be done this way, this can be done, this can be done. And as I'm doing that, if I start those projects, I'm just passionate about it. Because I see where I come from, I said, I can design really the solution, and I want it to go there. So for me, it's like, now if you ask me, what is the purpose? The purpose in life, actually. Actually, it's really still the same thing. I want just to resolve this problem. I wanted to fix this thing. And sometimes it's surprising because when I talk to people, I have a PhD, I teach, but I'm a very practical person. I wanted to hear about the theories and the stuff, but for me, if you can't implement that, you're wasting my time, or I'm wasting your time. So that's how kind of I established in my life that I have things I'm doing, things I'm working on, they are practical. I can see the results of those things. That's how I combine somehow my purpose and the passion. So when I was young, I had this dream of having like a PhD, I didn't even know what it was, but just feeling like, oh, you are a doctor, you know. I just had it in my mind, like, that's also probably was driving my way of going to school, being successful. I finished a bachelor degree, got a good job, but I thought I could feel always that there was something missing. Then I will go on to do my master's degree, have a good job. No, there's something missing until I just finished my PhD. And when I was doing my PhD, I was also working, I had a job. So kind of I didn't have a time to do my thesis or working on my dissertation or really being involved in my PhD as I wanted. I quit my job. Very good job. I quit, saying, no. I have to finish my PhD. Then I will go back to industry and finding a job. So that's how kind of I live a life of where, for me, it's like a mix of things. I have a purpose. I have something I wanted to do in my life, where I wanted to go, and then.
Yeah, so, I mean, you guys have taken the long route, but like if I were to summarize your answers, you're basically saying that even when you find something to do, it's your responsibility to build passion for that thing, right? So many times you're saying inadvertently that you might find something that you should be doing, but so there's a possibility that you might not be passionate about that thing. So you need to build passion in it. So is that what you're saying? Because it does sound like that. Because for instance, one of the things you mentioned about the UN was at a point it was very difficult for you, and even while you stayed there, you had to sustain passion until you realized, you know, I can do my purpose somewhere else, and so you left. Same thing with Dr. Jacqueline, who is saying that, you know, her purpose is to find practical solutions to things, you know, and so that's where passion comes in. This is what you're supposed to be doing, and then, you know, you can now as well build passion by the way you're implementing that thing, how you're seeing the results come forward, the solution is producing. So there's something I'm getting from your responses, that you can't quite, there is no start and there is no end between these two concepts. I don't know if you're understanding me, Ashley.
Yeah.
It does, except I understood you wrong. But yeah.
No, totally. I would agree with that, except I would say, in my case, I definitely couldn't fake passion. So it definitely had to come from like a really a visceral place for me. Like I would even say at the UN, I really did not have a passion. And maybe because I felt I didn't have purpose, actually, because I didn't feel like I was able to contribute in any sort of meaningful way, in the way that I felt was meaningful, right? And so, interestingly enough, and I think this kind of speaks to what you were saying, is, you know, when I was at the UN, I found myself actually doing other things that I was passionate about.
Oh, right, okay.
Because I wasn't passionate about my work there.
Exactly.
And I was distracted and constantly, you know, trying to figure out what else I could do. Like, I mean, I remember thinking at one point working for the UN that I wanted to like be a fitness instructor. Like that's how all over I was all over the place. Or like wellness instructor, because I was just wanted people to be well, and like, I don't know, it was just this constant wrestling. It was not clear. But for me, it's less about producing something. And this is like also a personality thing, because when you're like, you're very logical, I'm very illogical. Like there's nothing logical about me. For me, it is really like, I am that classic, like it's about the feeling of it. Like the everything, I could do anything as long as I feel like that I am passionate about my purpose in that place, I could do it. And it doesn't even matter if anything comes of it, because I'm always thinking about, well, I never really know what comes of it, because a lot of our own interactions, like we don't know, you know, how our interaction with each other impacts somebody or doesn't, and so anyway, this is another long way around to answer it, but I think for me it's a little bit different. It really was It's a feeling more than a product.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it just shows how different we all are, right? So, yeah, we're so different. Personally, I find that if I do get engaged in anything, I consider it almost my duty to bring passion to the project. You know, so I feel like my purpose is just doing everything well. You know, so some people are like that, who just can't do anything half-baked or be mediocre at anything. You just feel like you almost need to stamp something with the way you perform, right? So, like, I mean, it's just among the three of us here, we're all so different in the way we kind of consider that. So, Ashley, one of the things you mentioned when you were speaking is that for you to discover purpose wasn't something that you did on your own. So you were literally just with a friend of yours who pointed you in the direction of what has led you to here. So in our quest for purpose, it's not really about the things that we're doing now or where we are. So are you saying that one of the ways that we should approach it is to be completely open-minded? Like, it can be anything, it can come from anyone, versus the things that we already are engaged in. Because you mentioned you were already in school, you had already finished, I think, your first degree, and there was your friend who pointed you in the direction of what you didn't even know you had an interest in doing. You know, so tell us about that, please.
Yeah, and I think, like, it goes back to how different our experience is, because what really struck me listening to you was, you know, how you know, my perspective was, you know, the world is conspiring in your favor, and you just kind of have to show up, and when you got up and you said, well, this is the complete opposite of my experience, and it struck me as like, wow, that is a really important aha moment, because I do think that a lot of our experience is based on our position of privilege. You know, I had the luxury of, you know, I was born and raised here to a middle-class family, middle upper class family, and I had the opportunities that a lot of people didn't have and don't have. You know, I was sent to Paris on an exchange in high school. That is not normal. And I think it's important to recognize those things, as I had the luxury in many ways in my life to wander aimlessly and to have the freedom which I wish for every young person to really explore. And not everybody has the same kind of space and opportunity. I think that's why I'm so passionate about creating opportunity, and this is something we share, definitely, is giving back and helping that person, you know, your 20-year-old self, get where you are, or at least save them a few detours, you know, and I think that's a really, really important thing, is, you know, to call that out, because for me, in lots of ways, I feel like my passion and my purpose has been gifted to me, you know, like, it doesn't mean that I haven't worked very hard, but I think when you're given opportunity, no matter what the opportunity is, this is the big picture, is it doesn't matter, yes, I came from a privileged position, but I think the lesson is, when you're given any opportunity, you show up. Yeah. You show up and you give it your all, because I could have been given all of these opportunities and squandered them, right? And I think that's the lesson too, is whatever you do, bring your best self, because you could be, I remember a youth pastor once saying to me, if your job, summer job, is like to paint a house, you know, you're painting a house in the summer, then you be the best freaking painter that they've ever seen, because you don't know who's watching, right? And you don't know what that's going to teach you, right? And or where it's going to take you, exactly. And I think where I am now is not just because I was given a golden ticket, but because people saw things in me, and I saw things along the way that were like, wait a minute, this is really cool, I could do this, and leaning into those things For me, it was a very hard, it was logical but illogical. It was a hard place, you know? For me, it was logical because I was following my heart, my gut. Yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Jacqueline, you were speaking about success, carving your own pathway to success. And fantastic open line was where you said that, you know, success starts with our mindset. And we often hear that, actually, you know, that there's a mindset that really takes a person to the levels that they've dreamt about, right? So, and from there comes, you know, all the hard work, the effort, the responsibility, where you know that you have a part to play in achieving the goals that you're thinking about, right? But there's also something that struck me, again, as you spoke, and that was the fact that you were saying, you know, we all have our different definitions of success. And you mentioned that, you know, to a woman, to a certain woman, it could be to marry a rich man, you know, to acquire all these material things, to be able to be, you know, glamorous, boastful. You know, and then again, if you think of the fact that Ashley here or yourself were award winners in this city, doesn't it tell you to an extent that success isn't really just what we think it is, but there's an expectation from society of what success should look like. You know, otherwise people wouldn't be able to gauge another person's effort and say, to my mind, this person has succeeded. You know, so how do you kind of balance those two, you know, outcomes in terms of how you're approaching it? You're saying it has to be your mindset and we set our own standards for success, but still, you know, a person who has married a wealthy man isn't successful to many of us. You know, but a person who accomplishes things that elevates a community is in many people's eyes a success. You know, so that there should be some kind of, you know, imbalance, or I want to say, you know, yeah, so I mean, you can speak to this.
Yeah, that's a very good, really, point. So I'm going to bring you back to, let's say, in Africa. So in Africa, developing countries, all of them. You have a family, they're poor, they have nothing going on, but they're dreaming of, you know, getting out of poverty, because we are looking at that. That in the past, when you look at the history, if you're a daughter, you're lucky, she's marrying a man who has good life. Well, for the family of this woman, they are successful and their daughter is successful. And in the eyes of the society, yes, you are successful because you are well married, as they say, and you will probably help the family and everybody else. So let's say in the past, that's how things used it to be. So that's success. The daughters who were not able to find a good husband, they are not successful. And their families are not successful when we measure the success by how your children, your daughters are married. And when I say that, it's not only in developing countries. I remember in France, they used to tell me the same thing. For example, parents, will all, if you have daughters, they are the things being very different. Because in Africa, in some societies, men will pay dowry, you know. But in France, for example, the family of the woman has to pay the family of the man. And then they will organize all this ball you hear about good societies. Even when you look in the movies, it's about that, finding a good husband to their daughters of the families. That's a success defined in this moment by this society. And if you are in position of finding your daughters good husbands, yes, you're successful. And exactly what you said.
Right. So success really is determined by society. And that changes as, you know, you go across societies, right? So
yes,
yeah.
Somehow. Now, even if you look at the history, the problem most of the time these women will have, yes, you are married to the man your parents want, but you are not happy. Maybe everybody else thinks you are successful, but you have heartbroken. For you, maybe, depending on how you define your society. Because if I define my success as making my mother happy, my family happy, giving them a place in the society, and in my mind, that's what I wanted to do. Well, guess what? If I get there, I'm successful. But we have to remember that even in these ancient societies, there are some women. Everybody's screaming, happy that you are successful, but you are not. You are not happy. You are just pleasing people, or you are just respecting the society's expectations.
Excellent, thank you. That really kind of ties it together, right? So the mindset, there should be some correlation, you know, between that thing we think is success and, you know, how we manifest it in the society, not by the standards, so to speak, right? Yeah. Okay, awesome, sounds good. My next question is something else you mentioned. You were speaking about how success needs a village, you know, and so, but how do you pick this village? Because, you know, many times there's people who you come to and ask them, and you share ideas with them, dreams you've had, and you're saying to them, you know, so I have this thing I really want to accomplish. You know, I know it has value. I know it's going to benefit people. You know, I see all the good signs. There's ticks all over this objective, this vision. You know, but many people say to you, oh, hey, Jackie, I know it's impossible. It just hasn't been done. You know, so, but I mean, that's someone, a lot of us have people like that around us who are very quick to dismiss. Yeah. So there should be criteria around what these members of this village should show. So maybe share a couple of those with us in terms of what those criteria are that helps us to weed these out.
Yeah, that's really very interesting question actually, because the village we're talking about are people. Let's say most of the time people who are coming together to help you to achieve, you know, your dreams. And we have to remember that if the village is a set of people, you are the first inhabitant of this village. You are the first one. So you are in the center of this village. Everything else that's gonna come or not come, it doesn't matter because you already set the village. So for me, what I've seen, in my experience at least, you will never be successful, by the way, most of the time, if people around you or who are in a position of making things happen for you are not opening doors, or they don't want to support your ideas. I'm going to give you a couple of examples. But still, for me, I am a village. That's how I set my life. The reason is I don't want it to be disappointed and then abandon my dreams to begin with. So every time I have a dream and I wanted to pursue this dream, I make sure that at least 70% of this dream, I can do it. I can do that myself. Okay. Let's say I'm in a village where I am all alone. I'm the only one person to do that. And exactly what you were saying, if I start something, it's because it has to be done. So the majority of the time, effort has to come from me. So I count more on me than the other people. I can bring people in once I have established my own idea, a project.
So it's a timing thing. The village is based on timing. So you need to have made some sensible amount of progress.
Exactly. Because a dream is personal. Your dream is yours. No one will be able to dream like you. Look, when you are sleeping, you have your dreams. I'm quite sure no one is having the same dream as you. So it's exactly the same thing. It's your dream. You are the only one who understands this dream. You start by understanding that. Because otherwise, you have an idea, you go out there, tell to everybody, hey, come on, this is the idea, no one cares. It's your idea. Until people can see that, oh, by the way, this idea is good. And this is not something, you know, for me or you. Look at even all successful people out there, big business people. They will tell you the same thing. They started like Apple, for example, in their, you know, garage. No one believes them until they can show that there is something. So there is a serious, that's like entrepreneurship, innovation. A big share in your dreams. It's you. You dream, and then you try to entertain your dream. Now, I'm going to give you an example where you are completely disappointed because, so I had this idea, for example, to put together a mental health application with student. So you go out there, you have an idea, you have people who are going to work on the project, you have money, go out there and find the money. But the people who are just going to check and say, okay, let's go, they will say no. You have money, you have an idea, you have people, everything is there. Someone will just say no, and there will be no. There will be no project. So you have to keep this also in mind when we talk about the village. In this time, your village, there's someone who has the key to open the village, just to close the village. And that's very, very important. Why I'm bringing this, that's why I'm telling you why I have like 100 projects at the same time. Because if you close this project, and I'm sure that there is no way for me to get out there, I'm not going to waste my time with you. I have another project. So most of the time, those are the strategies you will learn on the way, on your journey. Yes, there are sometimes the village is closed, no one is coming. But that's meaning that that's the end of the world, or that's the end of your dreams? No. That's why I was talking about innovation and creativity. You close this door, I try to open it, of course, but guess what? I can do mental health app, I can develop another app, I can do project management, I can do so many things. So you close this, I will come back to you because I'm busy doing something else. That's my village.
I mean, fantastic. So I've taken away two things. You know, so absolutely we need a village, but we need to be mindful of when we bring them in to our vision, right? And based on your personal experience, you found that you need to have a certain breadth of skills by yourself, you know, before you can even begin to consider bringing people in. And the other thing you said, which was also very interesting to me, was as you rounded up now and you were saying that you were speaking about, I forget now, but I think you wanted to say something. I saw you kind of speaking into your microphone, so yeah, go ahead.
I was just smiling because, again, we're totally different. When you asked about village, you know, and maybe this is because you're like this starting and end point, like you're starting with your dream or your vision. My experience has been kind of the reverse. I've had to go in search of mine. I didn't have it to start with. And maybe it's also just a personality thing too. But for me, I've always needed and had a kind of an advisory council, you know, like a core group of people who I trusted, who I knew loved me, who saw me for who I really was authentically. And
so are you saying that they started your vision with
yeah.
you versus you already having made headway?
Yes.
And then bringing them in?
Yes. They, you know, my tribe, my village, was the one who actually sort of mentored me through it. Like, in lots of ways, I was the last one to figure it out. Like, I bet I could name about 10 people in my life who've kind of been there through the many different chapters that I kind of went through, and always kind of knew that I would end up in this place, you know? It took me a lot longer to figure it out. And so for me personally, my village got me to where I am. So it's a slightly different.
I mean, we're saying that there's no one size fits all, right?
Yeah,
and,
totally.
And which is why we do try to bring in people who have diverse backgrounds, just so people can know that it doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be this way and only this way.
Yeah.
There's multiple ways to still get to that end point of something, and it doesn't change what the outcome is. It's still a fantastic outcome. We just have different ways of arriving there, right?
Yeah, and I think it depends on who you are, your experiences, you know, what happened to you, where you started from. Like, you lost a parent
Sometimes
early.
Experiences,
you
right?
know, that, you know, you even just like where you come from, and the history of where you've come from, your family life. You know, my husband and I are like total opposites, and we had very different upbringings, and he's an introverted engineer and I'm an extroverted, you know, empath. So it's just like, I think, like you said, one size doesn't fit all, and it really has to be this, like, this work at figuring out who you are, what works for you, and not being afraid to kind of question it.
Absolutely. I mean, I do hear you both. I want to just add a little bit of something to Dr. Jacqueline's, because, you know, many times the route we eventually end up taking is determined by the experience we've had leading up to there. You will find that many people may choose either of these things because of the kind of life they've lived. If you've lived a life where people have always held your hand and lifted you versus, you know, being the exact opposite, then that suits you perfectly.
Yeah, and that was my experience.
Yeah, and then if you've lived a different life where you've been surrounded by those who keep telling you, oh, hey, you know what, this will not work. In fact, you will not find anyone who can, you know, can join hands with you on this project because it's impossible. You know, so then that will make you want to keep those ideas close to your chest and not constantly receive discouragement. You know, and you're killing what could definitely be something good, right?
Totally.
So, absolutely. I have another question. So one thing you mentioned, Ashley, as you were speaking, is how purpose changes. This is newish to me. You know, like, as far as I know, we all have an idea of what we are born to do. You know, so it might take some people a while to get there, but when they find that one thing, as far as they're concerned, I've found what I'm going to do with the rest of my life. You know, so for you to say that there's times when this thing that we feel is lifelong changes, you know, but, and then if I think about your own encounter, your own story, where you say to us that, you know, although you've worked in myriad places, but you've been pretty much doing the same thing. So I wonder, like how are we able to marry these two things, you know? Or how did you come about this, you know, other statement where you say it changes, even when we see that yours hasn't really quite changed?
Yeah, and I think that's the interesting thing, that even for myself looking back, right? I mean, this gave me the opportunity to look back and kind of reflect and go, oh, I've always kind of done the same things, and it's all connected and tied together. And looking back, it seems obvious, and it also seems like I did it, like I meant to do it, which I honestly wish I could say, but like I really didn't. But I also think it's important, like for me, I never, like I said, I never had one passion or one clear purpose. So mine was a bit more fluid. But even for those individuals who I know had a very direct and specific passion, and they felt it was also their purpose, the challenge with that in life I have seen is that you are not ultimately in control. And for example, I have a good friend who her passion and purpose was to be a surgeon. She's an OBGYN, and then she was diagnosed with a condition that she can no longer use her hands in a way that will allow her to perform surgery. Or even my dad, who was like passionate about flying, like he was a pilot forever, and he's lost his vision. These things are out of our control. Just because we've lost the ability to do that one thing we thought was our purpose and passion doesn't mean we all of a sudden become purposeless. Because life is full of opportunities to fall in love with new passions and find new purposes in different ways. And I think for me, that's been my experiences. I have found different passions and purpose. Although there's themes, you know, there's definitely themes, I feel a sense of freedom in the fact that I am not a this or that. I'm a generalist who, like I know now I could find purpose in any role, you know?
I mean, that's excellent. So, I mean, thanks, Ashley. That clears that up. You know, I have no questions there, so that's fantastic. Yeah, I have a quick question for you, Dr. Jacqueline, and we'll hear if anyone has a question. One of the things I keep hearing you say is that there's many things you're working on at any one time. You know, so like you're full of purpose, you're full of passion, all these different projects. You know, so how do you know when you can let go of something? Because you said that sometimes there's things that happen and then you realize that you can't really follow through on that one and then you let it go and refocus. So what are those things that are pointers that there's some kind of order or prioritization that even takes place with our purpose or our passion?
That's very good, because the key here is real prioritization. Effectively, you do. Like now, right now, I'm teaching. I'm going to teach 3 courses. I'm sitting on the board of governors. I'm sitting on another advisory committee for something completely different. I'm sitting on another board where I'm serving as a secretary, so you're doing almost everything for the board. I'm chairing this committee for EDI. So when you look at all those things that I'm doing, they're completely different. And I can really switch from one thing. I have my office at home. I have like two screens, big ones. So when you look at, there's so many opened documents, but also windows. And I can switch from one to the other. Now, this is something I've built myself since I was young. I can do many things. That's just, let's say, how I am. But it's very important to know what is the priority in all these projects I'm doing. For me, all of them are my priorities. All of them, so I can work on anything. The reason why I'm doing all these things, when I give you actually my secret, it's about learning. Learning. Every time there is something I can learn in a project, it's becoming my priority. And this moment, I need really, really learning process. I need everything I can find, put my hands on. Learning in terms of leadership. This is a different country, different culture for me. There is nowhere I could have learned how leadership is done here in Canada than being on the board of governors. So you're sitting with many CEOs, those people who really are on the top. When you come in the room, sometimes I come, I'm like, I should go back probably, because I don't think really I belong in this place.
Imposter syndrome.
But I'm like, no, push yourself, go back, sit there, because I have to learn. And every time I approach a project as a learning, it's no longer working. It's no longer too much of, no, it's becoming for me, I'm learning something. And here in Canada, I had to redo the whole thing. Because where I come from...
If I can interrupt you, Dr. Jacqueline, can you break down that word? Because you're using running in a way that I'm constantly having to reinterpret as you make more statements, right? So to me, it means when you're able to really kind of handle a project in its entirety, right? Or that you can already see progress, So what exactly does it mean in terms of the way you're in the concept of how you're using it?
Running, you mean? For me, the projects, I have so many projects. Again, really, there are really many. And many of them, like now, I'm not talking even about them. I have a big project I love, which is completely out of my professional. I do gardening. You've got to see my garden. It's really beautiful. And I started just from scratch because we bought a new house and there was nothing. So again, I'm going to just show you how I do my things to understand, to learn. Everything I do is about learning. And if I'm going to really do a project, as you said, from the beginning, I have an idea, bring it to the maturity, I will do that. Because it's again about learning. But again, people can ask you how you do that. In a project, there is, sometimes you need to know legal things, you need to have people who write, they're completely different from, you have a software development. I can do software development, that's my background. So there are so many things you have to do. For me, if I can learn every single thing, I would do that. And again, my purpose is here to learn. To learn again. Some people can say, okay, so that's too much of work. It's not. For me, I have never seen myself like too much work. Sometimes I go to bed at 5 a.m. and I'm like, oh, I remember just because I saw it on my computer. But again, because there is something I'm learning in this process. So I'm not telling to everybody to start having 100 projects. It's not a good idea, by the way. It's not a good idea unless you have a control on this project, and sometimes if you have deadlines, and make sure that you are going to perform well, because the problem here is you can launch 100 projects and you don't succeed. As you were saying, there is something very important Ashley said. Every time you are given an opportunity, make sure that you show your best. Again, because you don't know who is watching and what is happening. Now, I'm going to be very specific. Much more if you are a black something, black man or woman. If you are given anything like that, make sure that you are going to be the best. Okay? Because you don't have so many opportunities. But it does go for women, for everybody, everybody. Make sure that you do that. And that's why I'm not going to tell you to start to have 100 projects. I didn't start my life with 100 projects. Okay? I just learned how to be to the best I can when managing many projects.
Thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Alia, I know you have a question. Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can, and then whoever is directed to will repeat the question, so, yeah.
My question was around humility, because both of you brought it up in your stories and what you shared. And what I wondered is, it seems like in this society that we live in here in Canada, North America, that humility is not valued. We always have to talk about all our accolades, nominate ourselves for awards. So how do you keep doing what you want to do and love doing it and stay humble?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think it's interesting because I was raised in a family where like what was most important was humility. So my mom and dad, like if I ever did something really, really well and I got too boastful, they'd be like, "Now be humble, you know, like don't brag." Whereas my next door neighbor's family was very like, "Be proud of yourself and go and promote," and you know, like, and actually my sister and I talk about this all the time because we think like, would we have been more successful if we were told to like go and be a little bit more, you know, of a bragger, like, you know, like just to be more self-promoting and a little more confident, and to be honest, like I haven't got it all figured out, but I think it's just about being authentic. I don't think there's anything wrong with being super proud of who you are, and also not being afraid to be recognized for your achievements. I was taught to kind of like, if somebody gives you a compliment, you deflect, you know, like, "Oh, you look great." "Oh, no, you know," or if, you know, if you're celebrated, you kind of, you could deflect. But I think over time, I'm struggling and continue to strive for a balance. I think, especially for women, we need to teach our daughters and sisters and friends to be proud of who they are, to be celebrated, to feel confident in being celebrated and complimented and promoted, all that stuff. And yet the humility piece is so, I think, actually a beautiful piece about being a woman. I think there's something really amazing about a woman's ability to be naturally humble. I mean, for heaven's sakes, like, we're all here because of a woman. And you know, this struck me, this is a little bit long-winded, but it struck me when I was like pregnant and, you know, and I had a baby, and you go through this and you come out the other end and you're like, nobody told me it was going to be that hard. You know, like, women don't make a big deal about stuff they go through because they just go through it, and it's just, this is life. And so now we have this like time and space where women are like, yeah, look at us, we're amazing. So I think there's like a balance, you know, you have to be authentic and true to yourself. But I think there's a difference between like humility and confidence. Like, you can be confidently humble. And I think it's just about posture. And I also think it's really about if you can't connect with somebody, if your posture to the world around you is blocking you from connection, then you have a problem with humility, right? Like, I love what you were saying, like, you're coming to my event, I want to talk to you, like, you're still clearly confident, but open. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like, look, I'm here. I've worked my butt off to get here, and let's talk about it. And I want to help you.
I know this is valuable. So come and seize the opportunity versus, you know, anything else that would have rubbed people the wrong way. But you know, we all felt positive. We even kind of applauded, you know, your offer of having people come, you know, participate in what you've put together, right?
Well, and there's power in that confidence too, I think.
Yeah, because you're sure of the value you're bringing to people in a way that people can recognize and also be endeared to want to come and be a part of what you're doing. So I do hear you loud and clear that I feel like that question is really an issue of, fantastic question, first of all. And it's a response that has to do with just where you're positioning yourself on the scale, on that achievement scale, how you want to show it off. There's people who have, nominated. We had someone here come here, a young lady, Eno Eka, who is completely relatable, you know, but she's so well nominated, is literally 20-something years old and has done A to Z, you know, and is still really accomplishing things. Yesterday I was informed that the cost she now offers is now in 4 digits per person, you know, so in 5 years, she has built a business from nothing. But like, when you see her, she's completely you don't assume anything. And she speaks like a little girl. You know, like, so she's so sweet. Still, you know, every once in a while you hear her say, oh, hey, Chika, vote for me because, you know, I've done this, I've done that. But because you see the value in what she's doing, you don't mind that she's even wanting to put herself out there to be the recipient of these awards, right? In a way that you almost want to say, you know what, you actually deserve it. I should put you forward a little bit more, right? So I also have been privy to conversations where I've heard people say, you know, I'm doing such good work, I need to be celebrated. And they've nominated themselves and they've won the award. You know, so it wasn't because people recognized that they deserved the award, because maybe it had to do with their character and the way they treated people. Maybe they had a wrong kind of leadership. So people didn't think that they should be nominated or celebrated because they weren't acting right. But still, the work they're doing is excellent. You know, so there's all these different variables, honestly, Alia, in answering your question, that we can't quite say this is it or this is that. But these are scenarios where it can serve as a pointer in how we need to kind of position ourselves, you know, where you can maintain humility and still be celebrated as a woman, right? Or as an individual, in fact. Yeah, Jacqueline, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. The other thing is, like for me, for example, I've lived now in so many countries, and everywhere I've lived, it's kind of, it left something in me. So I have like many cultures conflicting in me. For example, people who are believers or who go to church, you know something very important in the Bible, Jesus has said, you know, make sure that whenever your right hand does something, the left hand should never know. And there are people who live this life. So even when you do something good, you don't want anyone to know. but you need to keep your humility. You be humble. You never say something. So there is something I've learned. That's your culture. But when you leave one culture to go into another culture, they have a completely different expectations or interpretation of what is humility. I have something I always, again, I go back to your state of mind. You make everything around it. That's why I was talking about being a center of your own village. Again, I am the one who has a problem actually with humility because I don't understand the interpretation in this new culture. Something that used to be my strength, because in many cultures, I told you, they can recognize when you are being humble. But in this culture, you have to go out there and talk about it.
Put yourself out
It's
there.
becoming a weakness, actually. So there's something very important when you take things in your mind. You say, I like to tell to my mind when I see something I don't understand or I don't want to see. Rewire. You are wired, all of us. Rewire. Go back to, we need to think this thing through. What do you call humility here? Now, there is a problem. The reason why I can switch from being, not talking about your qualifications, most of the time I don't do, into really talking about my qualification and the things I've done, depending on my audience. Because most of the time, promotions will pass by. No one is giving you nothing. Imagine you have a project that needed to be funded. I don't know, we're talking about 100,000, whatever it is. And then you go there with your, I don't know, maybe we'll work or we'll never work. Seriously, no one is giving you money. No one. And you will be surprised to see people who are coming, talking about the things they have never seen in their lives, but they are confident. They know that, everybody's going to give them money. And the village we're talking about, everybody will come because they think there's a person here, things are going on. But I needed to rewire my brain to say, hey, you know what, you are no longer in these countries where they like humble people. When here they see you're humble, they think you are stupid. Because they are like, if you really have done things, you could be able to talk about those things. If you are not talking about them, it's because you've done nothing in your life. Now, if I'm in a position of sitting with other people, talking about my accomplishment, for an audience that likes to hear about the things you've done, I don't even feel bad. It's not like I'm betraying my culture, no. I am just switching because I live in a different culture. And that's also what we call flexibility. Be flexible yourself. You don't need to be always humble if in this country they don't think you are being...
Yeah, not even, country might even be a far cry. If the context allows you to speak up. If, for instance, you're in a place and they say, is there anyone here who knows how to do this, who is familiar with doing this, who owns a business that offers this service, you will do yourself a disservice to be quiet. So there are contexts that call for you to publicize yourself. Yeah. And you should seize those. So even at that point, humility won't pay because you're literally shortchanging yourself of some kind of value, right? Mm-hmm. So there's times when you need to, for instance, put some things aside. And because the issue, many of the people who tend to talk a lot about their accomplishments is that they don't stop talking about them to learn new things. Mm-hmm. So they're so overwhelmed with how far they've come, mm-hmm. and they feel like they've gotten to a pinnacle, and then everybody else is now, subservient or lower than they are. And that's where problem creeps in, because now you feel like you can't learn anymore. You're now at the top of it, so there's nowhere else. So I think that has to do. So at that point would be a character issue. So we can't say everybody should know how to handle these things, because we all have, again, it's one of the points you've spoken about endlessly this evening is, people's backgrounds, where they're coming from. For instance, Ashley mentions her upbringing where humility is critical, and Jacqueline also speaks about a different country, different context, where the order of the day is humility. People don't go around bragging about what they've done, you know. So, but we're in a society that allows you to put your name forward for awards. You nominate yourself for all these things. You know, I was telling Ashley and Jacqueline a few minutes ago that I received a call from someone saying to me, you know, oh, hey, Chika, and there's an hour coming up. I feel like you're so well suited to the award. Nominate yourself. And I had to decline. I said, I'm so sorry, I can't do that. You know, I would rather people find value in something I'm doing versus having to put my name up. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's any final words from any other question as we wrap up tonight? We have like literally 10 minutes left. So any final words, Ashley? Any final words, Jacqueline? I mean, like 1 minute each, you know, and then so that we don't stay over time.
Then it'll just be gratitude. Thank you for having me and inviting me, and thank you for coming, each of you. It's not lost on me that it's a Saturday night in the summer on a beautiful evening, and you've chosen to come here of all places. So I just gratitude. Thank you for the conversation. It's been a pleasure meeting you as well, and this is why we do these things right now, because I know I have a couple of new friends and more great conversations to come. So thank you.
Thanks, Ash. Dr. Jacqueline?
Yeah, thank you so much. The same. It was a real pleasure meeting you. And thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I just wanted to say that we may be different background, but we share something, humanity, okay? At the end of the day, we're just in this journey together, life. It's beautiful, you know, challenges or difficulties, anything, plus success. Enjoy life. Come back to thinking, I'm not alone. I talked about this village, but there is a humanity. We are part of this. And make sure that you leave something in this world or anywhere you are going. Thank you so much for
Thank you, Jacqueline. Can we put our hands together for Ashley and Dr. Jacqueline? So as is our custom, we wouldn't let you go without a little token from us so that you can remember us. We want you to keep coming back. We want you to, keep being accessible for our community. And we also want to say thank you for the work you're doing as well in your own different circles. You know, it's an absolute privilege that people like yourself who are very occupied with 10,000 different things can also come here on a day like today when you should be taking time to rest, you know. So we're very mindful of that, which is why we don't want you to go empty-handed. So this is both to remember us, keep coming back, and also to say thank you for what you're doing and for also coming to drop all these nuggets of wisdom. We appreciate you, and any community who continues to, give women opportunities to speak is really headed in the right direction. You know, there's what women can do that, men are definitely lacking. You know, we do things exceptionally well, and we always add on top of that compassion and empathy. So thank you, Dr. Jacqueline. Thank you, Ashley. Can we put our hands together for these wonderful women? Catherine, so we want to present you some gifts to say thank you. This is for you, Dr. Jacqueline.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is for you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so that concludes our night. Thank you all for coming out. See you next month.
Thank you so much.
Let's take a picture. Oh, let's take a picture. Okay. One camera is not enough. You're so busy. One camera cannot take our pictures. She'll come to our front so it can be at the center. Okay.